Time is just gone 9:37 a.m. and this is a big interview this morning. We are talking about the controversial Islamic separatism bill that was called for last year, and looking at the bill where it is at this point in time in France, and it is basically now heading for the Senate in France, and we know the politicians in France are trying to outmaneuver each other from the right, but the key issue here is what is this bill all about? What should the Muslims of France be worried about? What impact will this bill have on the community, on the Muslim community? And there are already concerns in terms of French Muslims expressing that they will possibly suffer under these new rules. There will be crackdowns. And at the end of the day, even civil society groups are saying that this is tantamount to abuse of Muslims by the French government. And we join on the line this morning. And just to remind our listeners that this interview is going live on our Facebook page at this point in time. You can view this interview by logging onto the Salam Media Facebook page. We join on the line by Dr. Tariq Ramadan. Dr. Ramadan, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And as always, welcome to Salam Media, to News and Views this morning.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Well, Jazakallah, as always. Jazakallah to you as well, as always, for coming on and talking with us here on Salam Media. Now, obviously, let us just try and understand what is Emmanuel Macron trying to achieve through this bill, the separatism bill.
Look, I think that we have to put things into context, because at the beginning, when Macron was elected, this was not his discourse. Can you hear me? Is that fine?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, so this is important to remember that at the beginning, he was not at all having this discourse as, someone who was to become the next president, and then during his first year. And then things change for many reasons. The first, of course, is that he got the feeling, and this was true, that he was losing on the political ground. So to start again this controversy about Muslim presence, about the Muslims being, a threat, and talking about political Islam without defining anything, talking as well about radicalism, and of course, that the killing and the murder of Samuel Paty, the teacher in France, was also instrumentalized to because we have to condemn, and Muslims in France and throughout the world condemn what happened and this killing. But this was instrumentalized by the government and by the interior minister. And the interior minister, you have to know, he is someone who was very close to Sarkozy and who is now clearly targeting the Muslims and the Muslim organizations who are protecting the Muslims in France. So the context is political. Things were moving very quickly, and they started using this concept of separatism, which was used by some political scientists such as Keppel. But also we need to remember that this was used and is used in China to target and to define the Uyghur, and in Xinjiang they are talking about separatists, to tell and to define them and to label them as extremists and terrorists.
Yes. Now, also, when one looks at the consequences of this bill, should it go through the French Senate, and we know that for a very, very long time, Professor Ramadan, where we've seen a lot of loose actions on the part of the French government, on the part of French society to promote Islamophobia. But now when we're talking about this bill being passed, and in terms of cementing it and making it legislation, Now, this is where, the problem obviously comes in, and this is where the concern has come from the Muslim population of France. And we know the largest Muslim population in France, 5.7 million, is in France, in Europe at this point in time.
Yes, I think that there are steps, and there is a very old story in France. Remember, and this is also something which has to be put into the continental and global context. On the continental level, at the continental level, remember that the Muslim community in France is the most important one in Europe, and by the way, in the West, because when we talk about percentage, 6 million Muslims, it's almost now 7 to 8% of the French population. If this is the right figure, it might be that Muslims are much more than this, because it's prohibited in France just to identify the people according to their religion. This is one. The second is that what I thought for years was that the European context will influence the French one, and it is the other way around. It means that now France politics and the way France is dealing with Muslims is spreading around Europe with two main factors. The first one is to present it as a threat because they are not integrated and not integrating. It's as if Islam per se is against the European cultures. This is one. The second is the rise and the very powerful presence of the populist discourse. The far right parties now are maybe not in charge in many European countries, but their discourse and their ideologies everywhere. And it's creating the new enemy from within, the Muslims. And Muslims could be French Muslim citizens. At the end of the day, they are much more Muslims than French. And they are considered with a new non or informal concept, but it has an impact on the legal ground, which is foreign citizens. This is new. It's unknown in the legal systems, but the perception is here. You might have the French passport, you might have the European passport, but at the end of the day, you are much more Muslims than a citizen, so you are perceived as a foreigner. So this is something that we need to get. And then Islamophobia is not something which is coming by accident. It's something which is planned. It's something which is thought to create the new enemy, and also to deal with something which is a historical movement through migrations, through birth, through the Muslim presence in Europe. Now they are becoming a very powerful presence if we deal with the democratic conditions and the democratic rules, meaning it's a question of quantity, and they are now present in the society. So Islamophobia is a way to spread around an ideological climate. When you cannot deal with law, deal with the perception. When you cannot deal with the Muslim presence and make them, really foreigners and eternal migrants, change the perception and make it clear that you may have the passport, but you are not welcome.
Yes, and also when we talk about the debate surrounding culture versus the Muslim identity, and also Professor Ramadan, to see how the Muslim identity is being exploited, obviously looking at Muslims not conforming to a certain culture in France or in other parts right across Europe, and how this is actually exploited to further a certain agenda of Islamophobia. And we know with a number of the issues that are contained as far as this particular bill is concerned, talking about hate speech, talking about Islamic identity, talking about symbols, talking about Islamic organizations, education. So this is right across the board when we're talking about this debate between culture and the attack on the Islamic identity.
Yes, you are right. And it's as if nothing is changing. These debates have been there for the last 40 years. When I started talking about this during the 80s and the 90s, this was exactly the same. It's even worse because now the do not have a problem. They don't have a cultural problem, but at the end of the day, they are French by culture. Yes, they are Algerian and Moroccan and Tunisian and African by memories, and this is great. This is the richness. Now to add, this diversity when it comes to identities, as if it's a problem in France. It's as if the unity of the republic means, in the mind of the far right party, and now spreading around and across the political spectrum, it means, at the end, what is the essence of the unity of the republic is the unity of the culture, but meaning by this that the culture is white middle class culture, nothing to do with Africa, nothing to do with North African cultures, nothing to do with Islam. So now we also have to study what is happening in other countries. And for me, Europeans and European Muslims should also learn what even happened in South Africa, because whatever is the history of apartheid, you had two main positions coming from Muslims. You have some Muslims, in order to be accepted by the government, who went so as far as to support apartheid and to be silent, if not supporting. Some supported and some were silent. The great majority of the Muslims and the leaders were, of course, against it. But yes, they were Muslims, but they were South African, and they were promoting South African identity. And this is also the responsibility of the Muslim leaders and the Muslim scholars to make it clear that, yes, we are part of the society, but our discourse should be clear about three things. Islam is a universal religion integrating diversity of cultures. There is nothing against Islam in the European cultures per se. This is one. And there is nothing completely Islamic in Arab cultures per se. We know this. We know that we have to reform the Arab cultures because they are not completely Islamic. It's even, any culture should be reformed from within, on the basis and relying on our principles. This is one. The second is, we don't have a problem with languages. Remember what was said by some scholars. English is the language of the colonizers. French should not be spoken. We have to avoid these languages. This is wrong. What we have in our religion, and that among the God's signs, Allah's signs, is the diversity of colors and languages. So we need to get this right. So this is the discourse that should come from Muslims. We don't have a problem with cultures. We don't have a problem with languages. And more than this, it's not a question of integration. Now it's a question of contribution. We are here for the better. And when we got Mandela's voice saying that among the people who were with him struggling against apartheid were South African Muslims, and that he respected them for two things: their identity as South African, their struggle as resistant to apartheid, and Muslims. Let's come to this. Let's come to these teachings coming not from the West to the West, but from southern countries to the West as well.
Well, Professor Ramadan, I'm just going to put you on hold for a minute or two. We're going to go for a quick ad break. We'll be back.
By the Africa Muslims Agency, sponsor a water well for 14,500 rands or a borehole for 49,500 rands as a means of barakah. Africa Muslims Agency.co.za.
Looking to get your kick? Kiki's have now reopened on 235 Matthews Maiwa Road in Durban. Head on over for the Taste with Kick. We offer something scrumptious for everyone in the family. Wraps, chicken tikka, burgers, tender grills, mocktails, milkshakes, and so much more. Corporate and events catering available. Visit our social media pages for more info or call 031 209 0119. Kiki, the Taste with Kick.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and free zakat calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
Connect and stay ahead with Salam Media. This is Salam Media, coming to you live from South Africa.
At 9 minutes to 10 a.m., we continue our discussion with Professor Tariq Ramadan this morning, looking at the controversial bill, which is called the Islamic Separatism Bill in France. Professor Tariq, just to continue with this discussion and looking at the impact that this is likely to have on French society, on the French Muslim society in general, because obviously this bill has got far-reaching consequences in terms of the day-to-day lives of the Muslims, in terms of the control that they would exercise over organizations on things like schooling. We've even heard about virginity certificates of polygamy, forced marriages, funding of religious organizations, and at the same time, just looking at, even your imams and homegrown imams, the masajids. So all of this is likely to impact on the daily lives of the French Muslims.
Yes, and I think that, you also have to get always the big picture and then to understand what is happening. The big picture is, after what happened with the terrorist attacks in France and even the killing of Samuel Paty, what the French government did is to normalize what was before the state of emergency. There's exceptional laws and legal procedures which were accepted in the state of emergency, were normalized and legalized in the system, as if in the name now of security, we have to accept what was not acceptable before. This is one, and this is for all the citizens. So this is why the French Muslims should say, we might be the first, all the French citizens are going to be the second, because it's about it's about security, it's about control, it's about monitoring the citizens. This is one. Now, if you come to the Muslims, understanding this within this climate, what they are doing is that they are changing. They said to the Muslims for years, you want to change the law because you don't accept the law. You think that God's law are superior to the laicity or to the Republican laws. And at the end, we said we don't have a problem with the law, and this is what I have been saying throughout the West, even in South Africa, only saying yes, we have a problem with the law when the law are enforcing and normalizing racism and injustice and discrimination. But when the law are the same and the legal system is the same for everybody, we don't have a problem. So we don't want to change the law. At the end, what they are doing is with all this new statement and declaration expecting from the Muslims, first you have to acknowledge and to say it clearly that you accept the secular laicite system, which of course you are French and we don't have a problem. They don't have a problem with this. The second is now monitoring everything. From where comes the money? Yes, that's fine. You want to say where, you want to know from where the money is coming. You don't have a problem with this money is coming from Saudi Arabia because you are using the same money. You sell weapons and you sell and you have commercial activities with this Gulf states. So when the money is coming from Saudi Arabia, no problem. When, for example, Saudi Arabia is saying no democracy in Islam and that they are dealing with with no freedom when it comes to the opponents and when it comes to the scholars in Saudi Arabia, you don't have a problem. So you come to us to tell us that we need to abide by the French law, but you don't even yourself abide by them when it comes to your international relationship and trade relationships. This is one. The second is Imams now, yes, they speak French and they are preaching in French. So now it's also about controlling the imams, controlling what we eat, controlling the way we dress, controlling who we meet, and controlling everything in the name of security. So because we are talking about separatism and radical Islam, or what they call now political Islam, and putting every citizen who is now a Muslim, who criticizes the French policy and the French government, is suspected of being an Islamist. So an Islamist is a conscientious Muslim. It's a Muslim who is a political consciousness. This is where it is leading now in this country. So the Muslims should be clear. It's not going to work like this. We are citizens. We are free. We have to struggle for our rights, not only as Muslims, but as French citizens, and make it clear that our struggle is for the sake of all French citizens, because at the end of the day, what starts with as it happened in the past with the Jews, what was done to the Jews and the racist treatment of the Jews and anti-Semitism, at the end had an impact on all the society. This is what is going to happen with Muslims. And we should be at the forefront of a new struggle. Say, we are against Islamophobia. We are against racism, not only for the sake of us, Muslims, but for the sake of humanity.
Yes, and just finally, as you mentioned earlier, this has got the potential to spiral right across Europe should the French succeed in passing this bill. So there are certain dangers associated with the passing of the bill. But, we've seen, Professor Ramadan, civil society obviously making noises. We've seen very little come out from Muslim governments expressing their concerns at the direction that the French government is heading at this point in time.
Yes, you are completely right. And I think that even though you are talking about civil movements, and it's not even enough, to tell you the truth. It's not enough. We are not vocal enough. We don't understand the impact on this. As you said, the bill could have an impact throughout Europe, and not only. Just don't forget what is happening in the United States of America, crossing the board, because we might not be happy, or we were not happy with Trump. Let me tell you that what is coming with Biden and the way he's treating Islam and Muslims, and his perception and policy towards Middle East, is not going to be positive for human rights. It's not going to be positive for freedom and democracy. This is one. And for us, as you said, I think that what we need to keep in mind when we talk about this issue is that the bill is going to have an impact. And we should get this right. Muslim majority countries, they don't care about the destiny and the state of Muslims in Europe. Why? Because they know that if we are free European, Western, African, South African citizens, we're not going to keep quiet about their dictatorships. We're not going to keep quiet about the fact that they are killing their own citizens. So how are they going to lecture the West when they themselves are doing exactly the opposite with Muslims? Because the first victims of Muslim governments are Muslims. It's even worse in Muslim majority countries than it is in the West. So yes, they cannot lecture the West. They cannot say anything. And they are even happy to see that the political voices, where Muslims in the West are prevented to be vocal and to speak out, and suspected and monitored and even put in jail and classified as dangerous, because this is the way for them to protect themselves. So we should not be naive. We should know that our struggles should be crossing the board, and we need to get alliances from where? The global South. The global South, with people, with citizens, with the civil societies. This is where we will get our freedom and our voices. Don't expect anything from the Muslim majority countries' governments. They are not going to be vocal and to speak up, because it's against their interests. Even we have to understand that they are creating alliances with France, France is selling so much weapons to Muslim majority countries. How are they going to talk? And the states are supporting these dictators. Look in Egypt. Look at what is happening in the global in the Gulf states. This is the reality of it. So we should not be naive to expect the Muslim majority countries or the governments of the Muslim majority countries to speak out. Is not going to happen. Let us put our hope in God, in Allah, and in human beings and the civil societies. This is where the movement should be strong, as it was in South Africa, as it was in so many countries, and this is our future, inshallah.
Well, Professor Tariq Ramadan, it's such a pity we've run out of time, and I would have loved to engage a lot more with you, but as always, we value your time. We do appreciate your time, the inspiration, and your experience, your knowledge that you bring through to us here at Salam Media on News and Views. We do appreciate it. Allah accept, Allah reward your efforts.
At your disposal,
and,
inshallah, always.
Inshallah, we hope that you have a wonderful Ramadan as well.
You too. May Allah accept our fast and our prayers, inshallah.
Ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Professor Tariq Ramadan joining us this morning, and against the background of this controversial bill, which is called the Islamic Separatism Bill, and I must say, highly motivated and inspirational. And as always, it's great, it's wonderful having Professor Tariq Ramadan with us, bringing just so much value to some of the discussions. And this was the big issue, this was the big discussion this morning on Salam Media. And with that, I'm going to be signing off. Once again, it's been an absolute pleasure being in your company on the various platforms of Salam Media this morning, on Radio Al Ansar, and also on One Nation 88.9 FM. Until we meet tomorrow once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.